You are alone in a room. You know you are alone. The door is shut, the house is quiet, nobody came in. Then the back of your neck turns on. No sound, no shadow, just a certainty arriving from somewhere underneath thought, faster than any reason you could give for it, that there are eyes on you. You turn around. Nothing. An empty doorway, a dark window with your own face floating in it, wearing the exact expression of someone who has just been caught. You laugh at yourself. You go back to what you were doing, but some part of you stays turned toward that door for the next 10 minutes. Why does a body with a locked door and central heating still do that? Widen the frame. That reaction did not start with you, and it did not start with your parents. It is running on equipment older than farming, older than houses, older than the word for eyes. For a few 100,000 years, a version of you woke up in the open air, and the most important object in that entire world was not a tool or a plant or a weapon. It was another pair of eyes. Where they were pointing decided what happened next.
Now the part that stings. You live in the most watched century in human history. Cameras on the street, a lens on the desk aimed at your face, read receipts, view counts. Something is always counting you. And still, at 11 at night, surrounded by proof that you exist, you can feel completely unseen. Watched constantly, seen by nobody. Your ancestors would not have been able to make sense of that sentence because they had the exact opposite arrangement. And the reason your neck does what it does is not the reason you think. That feeling was never built to warn you that someone is looking at you. It was built to warn you about something much worse. Start with the equipment because your eyes are strange and almost nobody mentions it. Look at a chimpanzee's face. The eye is beautiful and it is unreadable. The exposed part around the iris is dark, close to the same brown as the iris itself, so the whole eye reads as one solid shape. You can tell the animal is looking. You cannot easily tell where. Now look at a human face. Around your dark iris sits a band of bright, unpigmented white, and that white does exactly one job. It turns the direction of your attention into a signal that can be read across a clearing.
Two researchers, Hiroshi Kobayashi and Shiro Koshima, worked through the external eye of dozens of primate species, a survey covering a large slice of the whole primate family. The result was blunt. Among the species they examined, exposed white sclera was unique to humans. Not rare, unique. Your eye is also stretched unusually wide, drawn out sideways, as if built to make a sideways glance easier to catch. Their reading of it is simple. Other primates hide where they are looking. You advertise it. Think about how dangerous that is. A predator that can read your eyes knows the second you have spotted it. A rival that can read your eyes knows what you want before you decide to say it. Evolution does not hand out that kind of exposure as a gift. Whatever your ancestors got in exchange had to be worth more than everything it cost. Michael Tomasello and his colleagues put the two systems side by side. Great apes and human infants, the same test. When a person tilted their head toward the ceiling with the eyes closed, the apes looked up. When the head stayed still and only the eyes moved, the apes mostly did not follow. The infants did the opposite. They followed the eyes.
The idea built on that is called the cooperative eye hypothesis. Your eyes went loud because your ancestors lived among individuals who needed to know what you were looking at and who you needed to be able to read in return. Researchers still argue about it. Other explanations are still on the table, but the basic asymmetry is not in dispute. You are the primate who tells everybody where you are looking. And a species that broadcasts gaze has to become an expert at reading gaze. So you did. Your brain runs dedicated machinery for eyes, where they point, whether they point at you. It works before you are aware of it, and it works with a heavy thumb on the scale, because the two possible mistakes were never equal. Feel watched when nothing is there, and you lose 4 seconds and a little dignity. Fail to notice being watched when something is there, and you lose everything, once, permanently. Any system shaped by that arithmetic fires early, fires often, and is wrong most of the time. Yours is exactly that system, which means the prickle on your neck is not a sixth sense. It is a smoke alarm with the sensitivity turned all the way up, installed by ancestors who could not afford the other kind of mistake. Put it in a body for a moment.
It is late. Not late the way your nights are late with a screen. Late as in the fire has burned down to orange, and the sky above you has more stars in it than you have ever actually seen. There are maybe 25 people around you. Everyone you know is within the sound of a normal speaking voice. Nobody has a room. Nobody has a door. You wake for no reason. And in the first half second before you are properly awake, your body checks one thing. Not the dark, not the noise. It checks for eyes. Somebody is up, feeding the fire. Their eyes catch the light and swing over to you. They see you sit up. Nothing is said. Maybe a hand lifts. You lie back down, and you are gone again in under a minute. That was the safest moment of the entire day. Now count the hours in that person's life when no other human eyes were on them. Almost none. In small foraging camps, life happens in the open. Shelters are thin, walls are barely walls, and the modern idea of privacy, a space where you can be certain nobody can see you, was not something anyone was building toward. Children stayed inside the visual field of adults. Adults stayed inside the visual field of each other. You have been taught to hear that as claustrophobic. Your nervous system hears it as home. Here is the turn. For your ancestors, being watched was not the emergency. Being unwatched was.
A human alone in that world was a human on a clock. If no eyes were on you, one of two things had happened. Either you had drifted too far from the group, or the group had let you drift. Predators take the animal at the edge, the one nobody is tracking. Groups quietly stop carrying the member who has become a cost. And from the inside, both of those disasters look identical. Suddenly, nobody is looking at you. So notice when your neck actually fires. Not in a crowded train where 100 people are genuinely glancing at you every minute. Not at a table full of friends. It fires when you are alone, when the machinery sweeps the room for eyes and comes back with nothing, over and over, and the gain gets turned up until it starts producing ghosts. The feeling is not the alarm for being seen. It is the alarm that lives in the space where being seen is missing. And that same machinery is doing something else to you, quietly, all day. In 2006, 3 researchers at Newcastle University, Melissa Bateson, Daniel Nettle, and Gilbert Roberts, ran something small and clever. There was an honesty box in a coffee room, the kind where you are trusted to pay for your own drink. Above it, they alternated the picture on the wall. Some weeks, flowers. Other weeks, a photograph of a pair of eyes. People paid nearly 3 times as much in the weeks with the eyes. Nobody was watching. Everybody knew nobody was watching. It was a printed picture, and it still moved real money out of real pockets because the part of you that responds to eyes does not check whether they are attached to a person. That is not a story about how easily you are fooled. It is a story about what kept your ancestors alive. Your reputation was your food supply. In a group of 30 people who share meat, being seen behaving well was not a moral bonus. It was your access to calories in the week you failed to find any. Eyes were the mechanism. Being watched was being fed. Now look at the century you actually live in. You are watched more than any human who has ever existed. But look at what is doing the watching. A lens on a pole, a camera that records and never responds, a number that goes up, a feed that measures you and cannot recognize you. Every one of those things takes the reading and gives nothing back. The eyes your body evolved for were two-way. Somebody watched you and you watched them, and the deal underneath it was that if you were gone in the morning, they would notice. That was the entire function, not surveillance, accounting for each other.
So you end up in a peculiar position. You get all of the pressure of being observed, the performance, the self-editing, the constant low background sense of being assessed, and none of the thing that pressure used to buy. Metrics count you. Nobody is keeping you. That is why a phone full of notifications can leave you lonelier than an empty room. Notifications are eyes without a face. If you have felt that, nothing about you is broken. You are running correct software in conditions it was never written for. The equipment is doing its job perfectly. It is scanning all day for a specific input it almost never receives now, which is a pair of eyes that would register your absence. And the repair is embarrassingly small. It is not less watching. It is one person in the room looking at your actual face. It is being somewhere often enough that somebody notices when you are not there. That is the whole ancient technology. It has never been upgraded because it never needed to be. So tonight, you will be alone in a room, and the back of your neck will turn on, and you will turn around at nothing. It is not asking who is behind you. It is asking whether anybody would notice if you were gone. For a few 100,000 years, the answer came instantly, and it looked like this. Somebody by the fire, eyes catching a light, sitting up too.
There is a moment, about 4 seconds after the first bite, when your mouth decides that it is on fire. Your eyes water, your nose starts running. A thin line of sweat comes up along your upper lip, and somewhere under your tongue a small animal begins screaming that you have made a serious mistake. And you reach for another bite. No other animal on this planet does that on purpose, not one. Put a chili in front of a rat, a dog, a horse, a chimpanzee, and every one of them learns in a single lesson never to touch that again. You are the only species that tastes fire, confirms that it really is fire, and then orders it again next week. Something in you has been going out looking for pain. That is the part nobody says out loud. You are living inside the safest, softest, most padded life any human being has ever had. Your food will not poison you. Your water will not kill you. Nothing in the dark outside your window is hunting you tonight. And some old part of you, a part that was built for a completely different world, never got the message. So once a week, it goes out and buys itself something that hurts.
Here's what you do not know yet. The chili was never trying to feed you. That burn was invented to keep you away. It is a weapon, and it was aimed at your mouth in particular. By the end of this, you will know who it was really built for, and why the fact that you ignored it may be the most human thing about you. Start with the lie, because the whole thing is a lie. There is nothing hot inside a chili. Nothing is burning. Put a slice of it under a thermometer and it sits at the temperature of the room. No heat leaves that pepper and enters you. What is inside it is a molecule called capsaicin, and capsaicin does not burn you. It cheats. In the nerve endings of your mouth, there is a receptor, a tiny gate that sits there your whole life waiting for one thing, real heat. At around the temperature of a drink too hot to swallow, that gate opens and sends one word up the nerve into your brain, danger, and you drop the cup. That is its entire job, and it has been keeping hands out of fires for millions of years. Capsaicin happens to be shaped like the key to that gate. It slides in, the gate opens, and the nerve sends the same word it would send for a real coal. And your brain, which cannot see inside your mouth and has to believe whatever the nerves tell it, does everything it would do if you had swallowed one. Sweat to cool a body that is not hot, tears, a racing heart, the full emergency at full strength against nothing at all. The damage is zero. The alarm is total. Your body is not being burned. Your body is being lied to. So why would a plant build a lie that elaborate? The answer is not flattering. The chili did not make capsaicin for you. It made it against you. Think about what a fruit is actually for. A fruit is a bribe. A plant wraps its seeds in something worth eating. An animal takes the deal, walks away, and drops those seeds somewhere new with a small pile of fertilizer. That is the whole arrangement. But the arrangement breaks if the wrong animal accepts it. A mammal has molars. A mammal grinds. Seeds that go into a mouth like yours mostly do not come out alive on the other side. A bird has no teeth, and a bird flies.
2 researchers went out into the deserts of the American Southwest to watch wild chilies and the animals living around them, and they published what they found in Nature. Birds ate the fruit constantly and showed no reaction whatsoever, because the receptor in a bird simply does not accept that key. The rodents, offered the same fruit, refused it. The chili had built a door with a lock that only mammals could feel. The heat is a bouncer. It stands at the entrance saying, "Teeth, stay out, wings, come in." And then, thousands of years ago, an ape with teeth walked up to that door, felt the burn, understood exactly what it meant, and ate the fruit anyway. Picture that camp. Somewhere in the highlands of what is now Mexico, a woman is crouched over a stone worn into a shallow bowl by years of grinding. There is meat in the pot behind her that is a day older than it should be. Everyone in the camp can smell that it is a day older than it should be. There is no way to keep it, no cold anywhere in her world, and there is no second pot. Beside her sits a small bundle of dried red fruits, and she crushes a handful of them into the food. Her mouth will burn tonight. Her children will cough and complain and drink and complain again. And nobody in that camp will be sick in the morning. In the late 1990s, 2 biologists at Cornell University, Jennifer Billing and Paul Sherman, went through thousands of traditional meat recipes gathered from dozens of countries and looked at where the spices actually were. The pattern was almost embarrassing in how clean it was. The hotter the country, the more spice went into the pot. In cold places, the food was plain. In the places where meat turned dangerous fastest, the cooks used the most. And when those spices were tested, many of them, chili very much included, killed or slowed the bacteria that spoil food. This is an argument rather than a verdict. Other researchers point out that hot countries simply have more spices growing in them, but the shape of it is hard to unsee. In a world with no refrigeration, a food that stops rot is not a luxury. It is a medicine you can taste. Your ancestors could not see bacteria. They could not have told you what one was, but they could see that the families who ate the hot food buried fewer children, and taste, given enough generations, is only memory that stopped needing words. Except that does not explain you. You have a refrigerator. You have never once in your life needed a chili to preserve anything. So why do you keep buying the burn?
In the 1970s, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania named Paul Rozin got interested in exactly that question, and he spent years on it. What he found is stranger than tolerance. People who love chili have not stopped feeling the burn. They feel it. They will tell you plainly that it hurts. They simply also rate it as good. He gave the thing a name: benign masochism. Here is how it works. Your body sends up a full emergency: fire, danger, get out now. And your mind, sitting one level above the body, looks at the situation and knows something the body does not. We are fine. It is a pepper. Nothing is actually happening here. And the pleasure, the real and specific pleasure of hot food, lives in the gap between those two things. It is the feeling of your own alarm going off while you sit perfectly still and watch it. Rozin called it mind over body. Your animal is panicking, and you are not. It is the same machinery as a horror film. Nothing on that screen can reach you, and your heart does not know that. It is the same as the drop of a roller coaster, the same as a cold plunge, the same as any fear you have ever paid money to borrow. As far as anyone can tell, humans are the only animal that has learned to enjoy its own false alarms.
That is a far stranger skill than it sounds, because it needs something that almost nothing else alive has, a self that can disagree with its own body. Now look at the life you are actually living. Nearly everything your nervous system was tuned for has been removed from it. You are not going to starve this year. Nothing is going to chase you. The cold will not take you. Almost every real emergency your body still knows how to answer has been engineered out of your ordinary day. And the alarm system is still installed, still wired, still fully loaded. And now it goes off over nothing. A message left on red, a number in an app, a meeting at 4 o'clock. And there is a particular kind of tiredness that comes from that. Not the tiredness of doing too much, the tiredness of going an entire year without feeling one single thing at full volume. So you buy it. You order the dish with the small red symbol printed next to it. You add the sauce that you already know is too much. You sit there in a restaurant with your eyes streaming, in public, completely safe, and for about 90 seconds, you feel undeniably alive.
Researchers have measured this. People who score high on sensation-seeking, the trait that predicts who wants the fast road in the strange country and the frightening film, reliably like their food hotter than everyone else does. It is not a coincidence that it is the same people. It is one appetite. And for most of us, the mouth is the only exit it has left. So the next time somebody watches you sweating over a bowl and asks why you would do that to yourself, you can tell them the truth. Nothing in your mouth is being harmed. The nerve is lying, and you know that it is lying. What you are doing is older and stranger than a preference in food. You are taking your own alarm system out for a walk. You are proving, in a small and cheap and 90-second way, that the animal in you still works, and that you can look straight into its panic and stay in your seat. That is allowed. That is more than allowed. There is a moment, about 4 seconds after the first bite, when your mouth decides that it is on fire. It is wrong. It was built to be wrong, by a plant that wanted birds, in a world that would have killed you by winter, for a body that no longer has anything real left to fear. Take another bite. That fire has been keeping your family company for thousands of years. It is the last honest danger you can still afford.
There is a certain hour of the afternoon, in a room that is not yours, when the light comes through the window at a particular angle, and something in your chest goes heavy and quiet at the same time. Nothing has happened. Nobody has died. You have food in the fridge, a door that locks, and a small glass rectangle holding every person you have ever loved. And still, for about 4 seconds, you would trade all of it to stand in one specific doorway, in one specific house, smelling a kitchen that probably does not smell that way anymore. You call this missing home. Doctors used to call it something else. For nearly 200 years, they called it a disease, and some of them wrote it down as a cause of death. Here is the part that should stop you. For almost all of human history, this feeling barely existed. Not because your ancestors loved their land less than you love yours, because of something about the way they moved. They moved constantly, far more than you do, and they almost never came apart the way you do on a Sunday afternoon. Whatever they were carrying, you lost it so completely that you cannot even see the shape of the hole it left.
In 1688, a young Swiss medical student named Johannes Hofer sat down to name a problem his country could not stop having. Switzerland exported soldiers. Young men from mountain valleys were hired out to foreign armies across Europe, and once they were out there, some of them simply began to come apart. They stopped eating, they lay down, they wept without being able to say exactly why. They ran fevers, wasted, stared at nothing, and refused every treatment offered to them. Some of them died. Hofer went looking for a word and built one out of Greek. Nostos, the return home. Algos, pain. Nostalgia. He did not mean it the way you mean it. He was not describing a warm feeling about your childhood. He was describing a wound. And the treatment that worked, the one doctors eventually agreed on, was not a drug. It was a road. Send the man home and he recovers. Keep him and he might not. Have you ever heard of another illness that is cured by geography? There's an old story attached to those soldiers. It is said that a certain herding melody from the Swiss valleys, the tune used to call cattle down off the mountain, had such an effect on men who grew up hearing it that officers tried to keep it out of camp. How literally to take that story is a fair question, but it survived for centuries for a reason. Everyone who has ever left somewhere knows exactly what it is describing. A sound gets in through a side door, and the floor of you gives way. And nostalgia did not stay a Swiss problem. For the next 2 centuries, army doctors in Europe and later in America kept writing it into their ledgers as a genuine condition, listed beside wounds and fevers. Men who had survived being shot at were being sent home for the crime of being too far from a field they knew. Today, you would be told to be an adult about it. So what is actually happening inside you? Start with something found in 1971. A researcher named John O'Keefe was recording from cells in the hippocampus of a rat, and he noticed something that should be far more famous than it is. Certain cells fired only when the animal was standing in one particular spot in the room. Move it, and they went silent. Bring it back, and they fired again. Not cells for smells or sounds, cells for places. Later, May Britt and Edward Moser found the companion system, cells that lay a kind of coordinate mesh across space, and that whole body of work went on to share a Nobel Prize. Your head contains a map-making organ, and it is not tucked away in some quiet corner. It is built into the hippocampus, the same structure that lays down your memories. Inside you, place and memory are not neighbors. They are the same machinery running on the same wires, which is why a hallway can smell like an entire year of your life, why a certain corner of a certain street can hand you back, unasked, a conversation you had when you were 9. You did not file those memories under dates. You filed them under coordinates. Now go and stand next to somebody 40,000 years ago. Picture a girl, maybe 14. Here is what we can reasonably reconstruct from the way mobile foraging people actually live. She has walked this land her whole life. She knows which slope holds shade at noon, which tree fruits before the others, where the water hides in the dry month, which stone marks the turn toward the good hunting, where her grandmother is buried and which way the bones face. Nobody ever drew this for her. She carries it. Every ridgeline out there has a story fastened to it, and the story is how she remembers the route. Now here is the twist that changes the whole picture. She is not sitting still. Her people move, and they move often. The researchers who have actually lived with mobile foragers, Frank Marlowe among the Hadza in Tanzania, Richard Lee among the Juhawansi in the Kalahari, describe groups picking up and shifting camp many times in a single year. Moving is not the emergency. Moving is the default setting of your species. But nearly all of that movement happens inside a territory the group already holds completely. They were nomads, and nomads do not get homesick. Because home was never the shelter. The shelter was disposable, built in an afternoon and left behind without a backward glance. Home was the map, and the map went with them. In parts of Australia, stretches of country were held in song, so that singing a sequence in the right order walked you across real ground. That is not a poem about belonging. That is home, saved in a format you can carry in your mouth. Now look at what happened to you. You sit still more than any human being who has ever lived. You have an address, a lease, a name on a door, and you are more displaced than any of them. Because at some point, maybe you were 18, maybe you were 6 and had no say in it, you stepped off the edge of your map, and you never stepped back on. Your map-making organ did not shut down. It cannot. It built the whole thing exactly as designed, filed it beside everything you have ever felt, and then the ground it was drawn for went out of range and stayed there. That heaviness in the afternoon light is not weakness. It is not immaturity or a failure to move on or proof that you are bad at being an adult. It is an intact instrument running at full power, pointed at nothing. And there is a crueler modern version of it when your ancestors never had to survive. You do not even have to leave. An Australian philosopher named Glenn Albrecht needed a word for people who watch their home change around them while they stand still inside it. The trees going, the street turning into a street they do not recognize. He called it celestalgia, homesickness without ever going anywhere. Your ancestors could walk back onto their map. You can drive to the exact address and still not arrive. So if you were 28 and doing fine and successful by every measure, and on a Sunday afternoon you find yourself crying about a kitchen, nothing is wrong with you. If you moved for the job and got the job and still feel like a visitor 3 years in, you did not fail at the move. You were simply carrying a map for terrain you no longer stand on, and no amount of career progress will overwrite it.
This is not a feeling you're supposed to outgrow. Nobody outgrew it for 200,000 years. And it does respond to something, not to willpower, to ground. Walk the same route until your feet stop consulting you. Learn one park, one market, one ugly, reliable corner shop until you could find it in the dark. Put a story on something out there, any story, so the place stops being scenery and starts being remembered. That organ in your head does not want a better apartment. It wants somewhere memorized. Because what your ancestors had was never stillness, and it was never a house. It was a piece of the earth learned so completely that it counted as part of the body. They carried home the way you carry your own hands. They walked for 80,000 years and never once left it. You crossed one ocean, or one country, or one city line and set it down. There is a certain hour of the afternoon in a room that is not yours, when the light comes in at that angle and your chest goes heavy and quiet. That is not grief. That is a map, still perfect, still folded, still waiting for you to hand it a piece of ground it recognizes.